that there must have been occasions when you took advantage of this time lapse, as it were, to see and also to manipulate. And the other thing about manipulation, of course, is that once you know that there's a liability of being manipulated, you can guard against that as well. So it becomes a higher order thing. But what I'm principally interested in here is the speed at which information actually flows back and forth in a market context. And what's the analog of the half second, and what can individuals do, particularly individuals with reflexive individuals and insightful individuals in that little time.
Well, it's definitely longer than half second.
Right.
But it has speeded up tremendously. And I think that's sort of my method of constructing a hypothesis, because that's really what I used to do in the markets. I would sort of put everything together and say, that's why things are the way they are, and this is where they are going. And that takes time. And I think that the process has speeded up so much that I mean, you have instantaneous reaction. You know, in the good old days, let's say when I was attending a meeting and somebody said something that I thought really hit some decision point in my mind. I would leave the meeting and make a phone call. Now, you know, everybody's doing it, and you do it on the machine. So to try to beat the crowd that way, I think has become impossible. So I think you really can't take the short-term advantage of the market. I think it's become really, you really have to sort of stick to a larger view. And sometimes you can identify a longer-term trend, and then you can stick it out. But I think catching near-term, running ahead of the market, I think has become impossible. And actually a lot of measures have been taken by the regulators to make the market more efficient, by for instance, forcing managements to hold public phone conversations where everybody can hear the same thing at the same time. It used to be possible to visit companies and find out something that the others didn't know. That's no longer possible.
I think true understanding is even more difficult than your half-second example. They've done experiments, and again, I'm just from reading myself, where they split the hemispheres of the brain, and they will show the right brain of a person, they'll show them a sign that says walk, and the person will get up and walk across the room. And then they go to the person and they say, why did you walk across the room? And he says, to get a hamburger. The purpose of the left brain, it looks like, is to explain the world in some orderly fashion, whether that order is really there or not. And so we all have to overcome this, that our brain is going to make everything seem reasonable to us, whether we want it to or not. So I think dealing with uncertainty is that much more difficult.
I wonder if I could ask you a question and make a conjecture and hope you could react to it. The conjecture first: if there were 1,000 George Soroses, markets would look a lot more efficient than they are.
That is the case today.
Okay.
I think there are 1,000 sort of George Soroses in the market.
Okay. And the question then is, well, preamble here. I teach finance. I teach students how to think about financial markets, and I'm probably not very good at it because I have a hunch that my students become the lunch that the George Soroses of the world eat. What if you were teaching finance? What would you teach?
Well, I would certainly try to teach sort of this sort of try to explain how I act, but it's very hard, and I think that there is a need for sort of conventional wisdom that needs to be, that I'm not very good at. So I'm not sure that my approach as such can really be taught. I have not tried to do it. If I tried to do it, maybe I would find some way of, of taking it further than this very general concept of reflexivity and self-reinforcing processes. So I can't really give you very much food.
So Arthur's question actually led into my question that I've been withholding for a while. I announced your seminar to my MSF students, Master of Science in Finance, so there were quite a few of them, and they read the chapters. And so we discussed this briefly about reflexivity and everything, and explained to them. And so, of course, as Master of Science and Finance, but they are just masters, they want to know how to use it practically. And so we discussed a few trading possibilities, and the one that just came to me recently, to my attention, is the Intel, where Intel's sales are about 30% lower than they were last year. Their profits are down. Their cash position is much lower than it used to be. And now the Intel CFO still puts up, still a profit, so he puts up a fat, happy face saying, we are doing great, and our slowdown is just due to the markets. Well, the problem is markets to PCs. Well, that doesn't explain why other less-known firms actually experience growth in sales in the same market in PCs. So how do you reconcile this? Fundamental story says they're not doing very well. They may be going down the hill. They're still riding on the coattails of their fame, Intel. And then the CFO gives a positive outlook. How would I use reflexivity to sort out the situation and put my money in the right place? Should I short them because fundamentals say bad, or should I take long because he is happy?
Okay. I think that gives me a little clue what I can say in response to your question, which I didn't before. Basically, you have to compare two things. You have to have a picture of the situation that's your picture, your perception of Intel. And then you have to establish what the market perception of Intel is. And if there's no difference between the two, forget it. There's nothing to be done. Okay? It's only when you establish that there is a difference between your perception and the market perception that you can actually engage in arbitrage. So if you look at it this way, then practically all investments are an arbitrage. An arbitrage between your perception and the market perception. And that, I think, is the key to investment decisions. There's no point in buying, the best companies if they are perceived as the best companies in the market, and if they are valued appropriately in the market. If there's enough emphasis on buying the best companies, because there's nothing left. So that's the key to, and this is actually the function, and this is what makes markets efficient, that people impose their perceptions, and then the consensus, so to speak, dictates where the market is. So this is the process by which markets are made efficient, so that arbitrage opportunities disappear. Now, of course, they don't totally disappear because you're always shooting at a moving target. If the target were fixed, you would in fact have absolutely efficient markets, but it isn't, because there's a historical process that goes on